is electric.
Hi everyone, welcome back to the EV Puzzle, a channel that focuses on electric cars, solar panels, home storage, batteries, heating, energy, all that great stuff, going electric and doing it economically. So why am I reviewing a mobile phone? Well, it's a bit of a long story, but DOOGEE, the company that's provided the phone, got in contact over a year ago trying to get me to review their phones, and I was a little bit reluctant until I saw that one of their products had an inbuilt thermal imaging camera, and that really piqued my interest. A mobile phone with inbuilt thermal imaging. I've been looking at thermal imaging cameras, I've been looking at add-on cameras that you can plug into your mobile phone. So to find one with an inbuilt thermal imaging camera seemed too good to be true, too good an opportunity to turn down on not reviewing it. So here we are, I'm reviewing the DOOGEE, a brand I haven't heard of before, V20 Pro. It's a mobile phone that's not actually out yet. It's being released in the next week or so, I believe. So the beginning of June 2023, this phone comes onto the market in the UK. And I've got to say, it's been an eye-opener. I honestly thought that this phone would be good to review from the curiosity of it having the thermal imaging camera. And I was curious to see what the brand was like anyway. It's a brand I hadn't heard of, DOOGEE. But the phone has blown me away. I mean, genuinely, I really thought that this phone would be something I'd test and then put it back in a drawer and go back to my old mobile phone, because I liked my old mobile phone. I liked my old mobile phone. But it hasn't been like that at all. The moment I started transferring some of the apps over and put my SIM card into the new DOOGEE phone, I haven't gone back. It's been a bit of an eye-opening exercise, because my thought of what a good mobile phone was has now changed. The idea and concept of shiny, slippery, smooth-edged, curved screens, cheap thin plastics and glass that can easily break, all of those things are what we actually seem to want to buy in mobile phones. And then when we get them, we either do drop them and break them, or we immediately encase them in a larger case and hide all of what we thought was pretty about the phone in the first place, make them bigger, bulkier, and even a bit heavier. So it's a bit of curiosity why we still go for these curved edge, super slim, super light, fragile phones. DOOGEE are doing it different, and when you look at their mobile phone range and what they offer, it just blows your mind really, because they're pushing the bounds of what we expect from a mobile phone, and they're standing out as just, well, being beasts of a phone. I mean, this one, the V20 Pro, it's got a huge specification. Processor-wise, it's just a mid-range processor. It compares well with, say, the Samsung A33, A34 sort of mobile phone. So it's a good, reasonable processing level, mid-range. It's priced as a mid-ranged phone as well. But the specs, when you look in detail, are phenomenal. 64 megapixel camera. Night vision. Yes, night vision camera, thermal imaging camera, 6,000 milliamp hour battery. Whereas if you look at, say, an Apple iPhone 12 Pro, that has a battery size of 2,800 milliamp hours, and some of the latest Samsung and Apple phones, they're sort of 3,500, 4,500 milliamp hours. So this phone with 6,000, it really is an all-day phone, and I've noticed it moving away from my Huawei phone over to this DOOGEE one, that I'm not charging it as much. Once a day is all it needs. And if you look at the range from DOOGEE, some of their phones, I think the V Max has a 22,000 milliamp hour battery. So they're going for it in a big way, battery life. We can have mobile phones, smart mobile phones, that give us the sort of battery life we used to get with the old Nokias back in the day. So yeah, DOOGEE are quite exciting me, because they're changing your perception of what's a good mobile phone. This one, the V20 Pro, is a ruggedized phone, so it's not in a case. This is the normal shell of the mobile phone, and hopefully I've put some images on the screen now for you. It's a very robust, it almost looks like a Batman phone, so someone like Batman who's got a rather active life needs a phone that's this rugged. I mean, it's rugged to the extent of being qualified for a military grade standard, and I'll put that standard on the screen. It's IP68 rated, 69 in fact, so it's not just waterproof, it's waterproof under pressure, it's completely dust proof. It's more of a professional phone. It's one that you can take anywhere, do anything, and rely on the thing working. You're not going to lose it. It's not that much heavier, it's actually 300 grams-ish. where my slim Huawei phone was 190 grams before you add the case. So it's not actually that much different in the pocket. I've gone out in just shorts and t-shirt and had the phone in my pocket, and it's not like it's sagging the pocket down and really, really heavy. It's not that much heavier. But it's so much more practical. I've suddenly found that I'm more relaxed with the phone. With my old slim phone that would easily fall out of my hand, if I was taking pictures over water, I'd be really nervous of holding the phone because it could fall out of my hand at any time. Where the DOOGEE phone just fits in your hand really well. The ergonomic design of that shell, not just that it's rugged, but it fits in your hand really well. So the power on and off button is right where my thumb is. And the power on and off button is also the fingerprint sensor. So it's just much more practical for actually using the phone, picking it up, powering it on, turning it on. And then you've got the custom button on the left hand side. Now that button's really good because it's programmable by itself. So one click for me is a screenshot. 2 clicks is to load up the My Energy app. And a long click is to load up Home Assistant. So the most popular things that you do can just be 1 or 2 clicks away. You haven't got to scroll through screens and those sort of things. So it's just a really practical phone. I'm finding, performance-wise, the phone outperforms its benchmark. So I've gone onto the Antutu app and done a benchmark on it, and it comes up at about 390,000, which is quite reasonable. It's about 20% more than my Huawei P30 Pro, so it is a performance upgrade. But it feels like it's a bigger upgrade, and I think the reason for that is because the benchmark figure includes a rather low graphical score, so for the imaging, which I don't really understand because I think the imaging of the cameras and the screen is absolutely fantastic, much better than my Huawei phone. So why is it so low? And I don't really understand that. Maybe it's to do with some sort of 3D gaming, specialised imaging test that the Antutu benchmark is doing. So it's scoring it down on something that I'm not actually noticing, and hence my perception is it's much, much better performance-wise than the benchmark is actually looking. It's got 12 gigabytes of RAM. Yeah, 12 gigabytes of RAM. I mean, they're not messing around. My Huawei phone was an upgrade for me. I went from 4 gigabytes to 6 gigabytes, and I thought that was plenty. And the phone performed really well, but 12, wow. I mean, that's why, with lots of apps running, this phone really does perform well. So the more you look at the specs, the more you realise this is a really cracking phone. 256 gigabytes of storage, so I've got lots of video shots on there and lots of pictures. I do lots of picture editing, and that's one of the things that I notice on some mobile phones. You take a really high resolution picture, and when you display it on the screen, you get like a low res version, and then a second later it illuminates and comes through, it renders the full high res picture. The DOOGEE phone is absolutely instant, so it's processing those images much faster, which again makes me concerned about why the Antutu benchmark showed that the imaging was quite poor on it, because it's not. The only poor thing that I can find is the audio quality. You're not going to want to play music through this device and listen to it on the phone speakers. It's a bit tinny. So you're going to want to use a Bluetooth speaker or some other method of listening to the music. But that really is about the only thing that I can find that's not up to the standards that I'd like. Features that I'd like them to add. The one thing that I'd like them to add, and I'd look at other models to see whether it has it, is the wide-angle camera facility. So when taking pictures, I do find it really useful for scenic landscape pictures to actually take them wide angle. But other than that, this phone really has everything. So for a mid-level phone, which is outperforming other mid-level phones, and the fact that it just transforms your view of what a phone should be, it doesn't have to be one of these, should we call it a handbag phone? Something that's really pretty that you just want to take with you and make it look good. Because how many people, there's only super rich people normally that have these super expensive phones and then don't put cases on them. So why put cases on them at all? This DOOGEE phone is just different because it's ruggedized and because it's sensible, it's practical and it's reliable. You just don't need any of that. You can just use the phone and you don't worry about it so much. I found myself putting the phone down a little bit harder than I normally would. I've suddenly become really confident with the phone that it's going to be safe. So I'm not treating it as a super precious thing. It's more usable, and I really like that. So my view of my mobile phone has changed now that I'm using this DOOGEE. And yeah, what a surprise that a brand I'd never heard of was introduced to me and I wanted to try because of just that thermal imaging camera feature. And it turns out to be an absolute cracking phone. that all the friends that I've shown it to have said, wow. And I've got one friend who used to put an Apple iPhone inside a ruggedized case to make it look like that. So to think that that's available as standard for a fraction of the price of what he's been paying for his iPhones, it's really eye-opening, isn't it? Anyway, I want to share this video with you and this phone because if it pleases me, if it interests me, then it may well interest you, and that's the whole point to doing this review. Thermal imaging wise, so let's get on to the key bit that interested me to start with. What's all that about? Well, if you're following the channel from the energy point of view, you probably know already. They're great for looking at images around your house to find hot spots and cold spots for where heat is escaping or where cold air is coming in, to basically insulate your house better and to insulate, say, your hot water tank, those sort of things. I've got an image here that I took of my Mixergy hot water tank, and what you can see is there's a crack there, there's a gap in the insulation that's on one of the pipes, and I didn't realise that that was there, and I didn't realise it was letting some heat out, so it was just a case of moving the insulation a little bit and securing it onto the pipe properly, and hey presto, suddenly that gap and that escape of heat has disappeared. So if I do that a few times, it's going to make a difference. And if you go around the house looking for those things, looking for where cold air is getting in and you can insulate and fill the gaps, it really will make a difference. It will help you have a more economical home and be more efficient with your energy. So that's the point to these thermal imaging cameras, to look for those hot spots, to look for those cold spots and see where heat is coming from or escaping to. Good thing about this thermal imaging camera, it's got lots of options on it. It's completely configurable for settings on yourself, and one of the options is to have it almost draw a picture, so it takes the picture as well as have the thermal imaging and then overlays it like a stenciled drawing, which means you can make out the features of what you're looking at much more clearly, like this picture here. So there's some clever stuff going on with this DOOGEE phone. The night vision camera, that's not a gimmick either, that really is a proper night vision sensor camera with infrared, and it picks out nice black and white images in pitch dark conditions. So yeah, night vision works a treat. Performance wise, maybe one of the reasons why I'm finding it better as well is because it seems to be quite a clean version of Android. It's running Android 12, but there's no sort of bloat software as they call it. So DOOGEE haven't added a whole range of DOOGEE related software that slows it down, and they haven't modified Android too much. It looks pretty standard, pretty clean, and it does run really slickly. So I was going to give this phone to Susan, who drops her phone quite a few times, so I thought the ruggedized version of a phone would be very practical for her, but unfortunately not. No one's getting this phone, I'm keeping it. It's absolutely brilliant. What I am going to do though is have a look at the range and see what one might suit Susan, because yeah, I'm confident. We were using Huawei phones, not going to anymore. We're going to be moving over to DOOGEE. And it's not just because they've sent over this phone for me to review. I genuinely have been blown away by how good this thing is. So I hope this review is helpful if you've been looking for a thermal imaging camera and also you're looking at changing your mobile phone. Have a look at this, the V20 Pro from DOOGEE, out this month.